Okay, so this is going to be my top 10 favorite lures for the spawn. I have some tube lures here, some sort of wild card lures. I got a weightless Yum tube on a 2-aught EWG hook. This here has a very good uh, falling action. It sort of has like a very good glide to the bait because of that rounded tube head. It's very good for bass when they're on the bed, and it when you hook it weightless, and you don't even have to use it in the spawn. You can use it around lily pads, and they're very good around lily pads because when they're sitting there in the water like this right here, and you jerk it up, it sort of has like a walk the dog action underneath the water. It's very cool. This is a lure that I just decided to put together. It's a Yum 2 black neon is the color. Um, I caught 12 bass at a lake that is very hard to fish here this past summer during the lily pads, or in the lily pads. I basically just cast it out along them lily pads and sit there and jerked it back and forth, and it would sit there and dart one way and then it would dart the other way. It's sort of like a walk the dog action in a tube underneath the water. It's very cool. And then I have this little jig head. It's got a wire weed guard. It's a little jig head with a tube body. This here come off of one of those Yum worms. They're a very thin worm with a tube tail on it. It's a very good looking worm. They'll sit like this on this head with the tube tail sort of flared out, which I can't do it here. But if it was in the water, it would look very cool. All them tails, they sort of flare out like this here, and they just like a tube. And this here is a little white hair jig. I've never really had very good luck with jig heads or with hair jigs. I caught one of the biggest bluegill in my life on a jig head, but I've never really used them for bass. I really do think that it would be good for spawn because they think it's a little minnow or something, or just anything getting in their bed and messing with their eggs, and they don't like that, and they'll hit it hard. Hopefully, I believe they would. And then I have those tube type wild card baits, and then I have some crawl baits. With this here is a white and black crawl jig. It's a very inexpensive jig. It's $1 $2 at Walmart. Then I got these trailers you've seen in the last video if you watched it. If you haven't, make sure to check that out. That video is for my favorite lures for all around just fishing. This here is just a very inexpensive flat jig, and you can tell it's been used a lot. It's caught a lot of fish because that head has been chipped pretty bad. It's a very good jig for the spawn as well. They can see it. It's just like that white hair jig. They can see it very well, and they just don't like it in their bed, and they'll hit it hard. This here is a Yum Christy Crawl type bait. It's got 2 pinchers on it. This here is the I don't really remember the name of it. It's made by Yum. It got them Christy Crawl legs on it with the big kind of club feet. This here's black and blue color, and I got it on a weighted sort of a swim bait hook. It'd be a very good bait, I believe. I've also used these type of crawls for swimming it over the top of grass like a toad, because at Walmart they don't really sell toads. They just got some in this past week, and I'm going to go buy some hopefully in the future. These here are good for jig trailers, swim jig trailers, spinnerbait trailers, black and blue chatterbait trailers. They're really good for a lot of different things, and they're also very good for just by themselves, hooked on either a weighted hook like this or on a wobble head or something like that. Now this here is a little finesse style Strike King Bitsy Flip jig. It's I made it sort of a finesse jig. It's got a gray, I don't know what that color of crawl is. Believe it or not, this crawl, I found it the day that I caught all them bass on this tube. The day I caught them bass up there on that really hard to fish lake on that tube, I actually found this crawl hooked on a little bitty 1/0 EWG hook, and I don't know what color it is. This is the only crawl I have of this color and this type, I guess you'd call it. It's a very cool looking crawl, and it goes very good with the black and blue color of the jig itself. And it's got a lot of flapping action. If any of you guys know what the name of this crawl is, or what the name of the color is, it's sort of a gray on top with an orange bottom to it. If any of you guys know what the name of the color or the jig or the crawl itself is, let me know in the comments. These here are some minnow style baits that I like to use. This here's a little jig head with a sort of a jerk bait, green pumpkin jerk bait with an orange black eye jig. It's a twin tail, you know, sort of like a fluke. It's green pumpkin color. You sit there and you hop it over the bottom. I think this here would be good for smallmouth as well, fishing during the summer and stuff like that down in the deeper water, which we don't have smallmouth around here, but if we did, I think that right there would work pretty good as well. This here is something that you can use for about anything. This here is like a little bitty teeny tiny jig head with a little bitty minnow. Now these little minnows I got out of my dad's old tackle box for crappie. He used to use these for crappie. But you can use them for crappie, bluegill, bass, almost anything. My dad has even caught snakes with these little minnows. He hooked one time when we was up there camping, and he was using this type of minnow here with a little bit bigger jig head, and he was swimming along this grass line, and all of a sudden there was a snake, and all of a sudden that snake just went out there and grabbed that jig head. And of course, me being afraid of snakes, I almost jumped in the water after it, or away from it. And that was funny though. But it's a very good little minnow. I think it would be good for about anything: crappie, bluegill, bass. You could probably even use it for smaller pike and muskie in their beds. Now this here is a 2/0 EWG hook on a weightless Zoom Super Fluke Junior with the white ice color, and this is a very good lure for all year fishing, and it's pretty good for just about anything. You can even buzz it across the grass. I've caught a fish doing that before with a bigger swim bait, which I was talking about in my last video. Then I got this. This here is going to be the last lure in the video. This here is like a chatterbait. It's got a clear, soft plastic bill. They just started selling these at Walmart, but I know that they're good for bed fishing because I've seen them on TV before they started selling them at Walmart. I put a Berkley Pit Boss on for the trailer, and I think it'd be pretty good. You can buzz it over the beds, and they don't like anything being around their bed. They think it's a predator or something trying to get in their bed, and they don't like it at all. So that's it. I have 3 minnow style baits, 3 sort of wild card baits, 3 crawl baits, and then I have this moving bait. I also would like to include this here which is my favorite lure besides topwater, is a chatterbait. You can also basically do the same thing with this chatterbait as you can with that chatterbait style bait. You can sit there and buzz it across the beds or over the beds, and they'll hit it because they don't want nothing to be around their beds. Okay, well, I think that's about it. If you guys have questions or anything relating to fishing or water clarity or any questions, I love to answer questions. So just ask in the comments. Like the video if it's good. Next week I think I'm going to do something sort of like the pre or a post spawn lures video. So stay tuned till next Tuesday.